Well, welcome back to Destination Aviation. I'm your host, Jeff Miller. Today we have a conversation. We're connecting pieces between aviation and buying groceries, because who doesn't buy groceries? Obviously, I buy groceries. But we have a conversation with Andy Ellwood, who, one, for people that are interested, or students that listen to this, he did sell private jet access cards for net jets, or jet cards, I think is what they're called. I don't know. Obviously, I've never had one, but so he started a career there. Then he created an app called Stretch, and we're going to get into that conversation with Andy right now. Well, Andy, welcome to Destination Aviation.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to our conversation, and we were talking right before we got on. We have a large aviation group on here, but I also think they all buy groceries. I'm pretty sure. I know I do. So maybe at the top of this, you could just kind of start off with who you are, kind of your background, aviation connection, and we'll start the conversation going there.
Yeah. So I grew up in North Texas and was the oldest of four kids, and I have been told that I have big brother energy. And I try and say the big brother that you liked, right? The one that helped you get over the fence and taught you how to juggle, like the fun big brother, right? And so I've always kind of lived my life. I give good hugs. I'm a tall person, and so that's how I kind of show up in most of the spaces that I am. And also just a really curious person. I know how I grew up, but I'm also really always curious about how other people did and how it's informed the way that they move through life. And that curiosity has led me into a lot of really interesting places. Now as a startup founder, a fifth company. But before that, as a private jet salesman for Marquis Jet and NetJets, which was one of the most interesting ways to spend my mid-20s, was cold calling celebrities, billionaires, and athletes. And they all took my phone call. And they're like, wait,
that's good.
You've got Warren Buffett's private jets? Let's talk. And
Yes.
and that was a lot of fun. My office was at Love Field in Dallas, and I had private jets parked outside my window, and clients would come in and we'd tour the private jets and decide if this one was big enough for them. And I would always encourage them that the bigger one was definitely the right choice.
Always.
You're a tall person. You want to be able to stand up in this one, right?
Right.
You don't want to crawl into the back of a.
I feel like you haven't let those skills go.
You don't want to crawl in the back of a Citation. You play for the Dallas Mavericks. So it was an amazing way to spend my mid-20s, and I was really, really grateful to see how the other side lived. Right, that is not how I grew up. That is not
same here.
The world that I was brought up in, and I learned so much from my clients that I'm just incredibly grateful that they saw me as their jet salesman, but a lot of them when we were out to lunch or things like that, they would take an interest. And
that's beautiful.
I got a ton of really good advice, and some of the best advice I got was to quit selling them jets and go try and build something myself, and that's how I got into startups.
Well, don't you love when you meet someone like that, especially that's more affluent and they have that type of mentality and behavior? Yeah. I love hearing stories like that, because sometimes that's not all the way it goes, but when you meet those special people that help nurturing others, I love that stuff. So
yeah, I would say I've never had anybody who's further ahead of me in life discourage me.
Yeah,
it's only people that are trying to pull you down, that are saying stay down here with us. The richest, most successful people I know are always like, hey, you can do it too. It's we're all just as President Obama said, once you get to the top table in the world, you realize that everybody's just a bunch of folks. Yeah, and I think that's a pretty good quote.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. So you're in your 20s and you're selling aircraft. May I ask, because I know several people that sell aircraft, and I've never asked them this question, but how does one find themselves just one day saying, you know what, maybe are they just looking like your personality and a good salesman, or how do you come to do that?
Yeah. So I started off with a very different sales job, which was selling life insurance.
Okay. Could be tied together.
If you can sell life insurance, you can sell anything.
That's true.
Because every pitch is easier than, Jeff, have you thought about your death recently?
Every day, Andy, every day.
So I ended up becoming Rookie of the Year my
Oh,
first year out of college selling life insurance.
wow.
I got pretty good at it. So I
Congratulations.
sold more life insurance than any 23-year-old in America for Northwestern Mutual, and Northwestern Mutual is big blue,
Yeah.
right? So one of
Yeah.
the largest in the country, and so learned a ton from selling life insurance on just how to network, how to build referral base, how to get into rooms that I don't belong in,
Yeah.
and one of the rooms that I got into was a room with some private jet salesmen, and the
Wow.
opportunity was coming up for the North Texas region. And I said, I'm going to put my hat in the ring. I want
Yeah.
this opportunity. And they said, well, we only hire people with 15 years of sales experience. And I said, well, I started my first company when I was 12. I'm going to be 27 next year. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And they, I guess, appreciated the chutzpah
That's good.
and a little bit of unfounded swagger. And that turns out to be pretty valuable when you're selling private jets to billionaires.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that. I could see that. So you said you switched over to Berkshire Hathaway with NetJets. And so at that point, you were selling more of the fractional ownership ideal. I say timeshare this guy,
Yeah.
but is
Yeah.
that you gravitated
So
towards?
I was actually on the marquee jet side of
Okay.
things. So the jet
Okay.
card,
Oh,
and
okay.
and the
Okay.
jet card, Jesse Itzler and Kenny Dichter,
Yeah.
we're friends with a bunch of rappers and athletes in New York, and none of
Yeah.
them wanted to buy a whole fractional share of
Yeah.
a plane because they weren't
Yeah.
sure if they were going to be rich next year. Right.
That's it's funny you say that because just I had somebody on this podcast and I was telling them like the old rappers, like Ja Rule are gonna have to change their songs because flying in my G2. I'm like, well,
100%.
maybe he is though. Maybe he
He
is.
might still be. He might
He might
still
be
be.
in that
Yeah.
bad boy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's it. So it because and I don't worry, I want to what you're actually doing today, but there's so many people that listen to this as students and stuff. And I would say I think you're the first aircraft kind of broker we've had on. And so one thing I would use, and now you're not doing it anymore. How does that, is it highs and lows when it comes to like salary? I mean, if you're just like an average salesman, are you living off of that, or how does that, is it commission based or?
Yeah. Yeah. So base plus commission plus
Okay.
bonus.
Okay.
And the really interesting part about selling aviation, especially fractional shares and
Yeah.
the jet card, right? The jet card is 25 hours at a time, wheels up to
Okay.
wheels down, right? So if it's a 2 hour and 46 minute flight and you
Yeah.
have a 25-hour card, we deduct 2 hours and 46 minutes off of your card, and
Oh,
now you have 22 hours and 14 minutes left.
yeah.
And so
Right.
you just top it up
Like an
whenever
old
you.
phone plan.
Just
Like
exactly, just
I
like an
need
old
another
phone
20
plan.
minutes.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
That's crazy.
Except this 25 hours costs hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right. Is it an actual card? Or I've
Oh
already
yeah,
asked people.
yeah,
It
yeah.
is.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah.
this
I mean,
is your card.
people are like, it doesn't do anything, but it's a membership card. It makes you feel special.
Yeah. So you get a
So
member number. So like
yep,
the
yep,
lower you are, you're like, look how long I've been a
yeah,
member.
yeah.
Because
But
go
the
ahead.
really interesting part about buying a jet card is,
Yeah.
and this is when I was selling, there are 14 different types of jets,
Yeah. Okay.
right? So going from
Yeah.
Citation
Yeah.
all the way up to a G6.
Yeah.
You're guaranteed your class of plane or higher on 8 hours notice
Okay.
on any runway in the country.
So lower 48.
Yep.
Okay.
Lower 48. Yeah.
All
And so the NetJets Logistics Center in Columbus, Ohio is one of the most insane rooms I've ever been in,
Yeah.
because right now, and I believe this is still true, NetJets aircraft have more planes in the air than every other airline except for American and Delta.
I have heard that. Yes.
Right. And so
Yeah.
except that it's an entire airline that runs on the whims of rich people on 8 hours notice.
Yeah.
Right? There's no routes. Right? There's
Right.
there's no, I'm going to catch the 5:30 flight from JFK to DFW.
Right.
It's, I want to go to Dallas in 8 hours.
Right. Well, and it's interesting. So it started. I know it's not necessarily quarter share anymore, but that's the end of the tail number,
Yep.
right? QS on
Yep.
every
QS, yep.
one of them. But yeah, I want to say what I hear. You probably may know or not that this year, next year, I've heard they're going to surpass United as having the most aircraft in the world. So.
Is that right?
Yeah. So
I mean,
kudos to you
I-
in selling those cards.
yeah. Well, Warren Buffett became a client in 95
Yeah.
and bought the whole company in 96.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you know, we're like, people need this, right? And
Yeah.
so, you know, it's highs and lows, and you know, and
Yeah.
the highs and lows are, you know, cyclical to regions. So you know, when I was
Yeah.
selling, I was in Texas,
Yeah.
natural gas was going through the roof.
Yeah.
And so I had a bunch of people who'd never flown private flying private for the first time, which was
Okay.
great for my commission check.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't want to fly Southwest Airlines you know, from the oil fields back to, you know, back to Houston.
Right.
I'm going to take a PJ.
So if you were an aspiring student and you were looking to get into this line of work, I mean, background wise, you know, we have, it's just, I think I'll finish this segment on, I think they would love to hear what you have to say if you're a young aspiring Andy and let's say high school going to college and you want to do this. Is it a good route? Did you enjoy it? Would you
Love
recommend
it.
it?
Love it.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
you meet some of the most incredible people in the world, and you get
Yeah.
rejected by some of the most incredible people in the world.
Yeah.
And you know, I think that if I was going to chart my course to become a private jet salesperson, I would work on communication and finance as two angles, because being able to understand and do the math quickly on how much every hour costs, how much a fractional costs, being able to understand the actual investment of putting money into a plane, and understanding it at an hourly level, understanding it at an ownership level. We used to joke, people were like, well, I'm just going to buy my own plane. And I used to say, the only reason to buy your own plane is ROE, return on ego, right? You know, the math just doesn't math to own your own plane, you know,
Yeah.
at least a jet. And so,
Yeah.
but I think, you know, being able to like sit across from some of those successful people in the world and know your numbers cold,
Yeah.
and then calculate it on the fly, right? Like, you know, we all have AI in our pocket now, but you know, they're not hoping you know, ask Claude, you know, what they should do. They want to know
Yeah.
what you think. And so being able to reason with them, their attorneys, their lawyers, their accountants, you know, that's
Mhm.
the type of thing that I think is really important when you're selling and playing in that space.
No, that makes no sense. So when you left from selling jet cards,
Yeah.
what was your next stop after that? Did you get right into you said at that point you created 5 companies starting at age 12? Did I hear that right?
Well, yeah. Well, if you count age 12, you know, I've created 6.
6, okay. Okay, 6.
No, but the company, you know, Marquis Jet was headquartered in New York City.
Yeah.
And so I was up to New York 6, 7 times a year. And I was like, this is great. I want to do a run, you know, here in New York City. And so I told my boss, I was like, hey, you know, I want to move to New York. You know, the company's based there. Like, I want to transfer. And they're like, we don't need you in New York. We've got enough salespeople here, and you don't have a network.
Are you in
Like,
Columbus at this point?
I'm in Dallas.
Dallas. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
Dallas.
yeah. So I had the North Texas region, and it
Yeah.
was doing really well. And he's like, you'd be crazy to give this up.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, but like moving to New York City is the crazy thing to do, and I
Yeah.
think that just means I resign, you
Yeah.
know. And so
Yeah.
resigned from doing that to join a startup, and the startup had just raised a little bit of money,
Yeah.
and they're like, we need somebody to run, you know, our business development team. And I was like, what's business development? And then they described it to me, and I was like, so sales. And they're like, sure, but like, we don't like to call it sales. I was like, whatever, right? Just like,
Yeah.
you know, you either are selling or you're in denial that you're selling.
Yeah.
And so, you know, those are the two options in this world. And so I jumped in, and I just, you know, kind of put on my salesman hat and started selling, you know, it was right when the App Store had come out. And so we were one of the first apps to be featured by Apple on stage
So
with
this
Steve
is
Jobs.
I'm gonna
09.
okay, I was just gonna say '08. I was like, I'm
Yeah,
not a
08,
tech.
09.
Okay, okay.
Yep. And so, you know, we ended up figuring out that we were onto something, and we sold that company to Facebook.
Is that too with where I would assume where your job was, the 2008 market crash, people probably stopped spending as much on planes, right?
I had one of my clients
Yeah.
sell his Ferrari collection
Oof. Yeah. That's a
so
bad time.
that he could keep flying private.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, that's fair then.
You know,
So you
he took his shoes off once going through TSA and was like, "Got to sell the Ferraris."
Oh, that's good. Okay, so you sold it to Google.
We sold that company to Facebook.
Oh, you sold it to Facebook. Okay.
Yep. And so then we sold it pre-IPO, which was good.
Yeah.
You know, really good for our investors. And then I decided not to join Facebook, and took another risk on myself and joined a small little company based in Israel called Waze. And
Yes, I've heard of them, I think.
yeah, yeah,
It's the one I'm thinking of.
yeah. And they were expanding, they were growing,
Yeah.
expanded out of Israel. And I was in New York, and they're like, we need somebody to, to lead business development,
Yeah.
globally, and we want to open a New York office. So I helped them do that. And then a few years later, we sold to Google. And
If you put the Minions overlay in that, I will love you forever. Because when you used your app, I was driving once and I was in it. I didn't even know, like, somebody, it got on the background. I'm an idiot. And I was driving, and it says cop 0.4 miles. And I went by. I didn't know it was on, but it went, "Meh," and I like looked down. I'm like, what the hell is that? So you guys, that's a beautiful job. I love that
thank
app.
you.
I
Thank
love
you.
that
Yeah.
app.
I was lucky to be part of doing some of the first voiceover deals.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so we had Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart, and, yeah, it was fun. I think The Rock,
Really?
was in there. So, yeah. And,
Oh, that's so cool.
it was funny, the different ways that, they would tell you to
Yeah.
turn left, so.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but Waze was amazing. We
Yeah.
sold it to Google. So that was, the first two companies I joined. One
Yeah.
got bought by Facebook, one got bought by Google. I'm like,
That's
rub
a
my
good,
belly.
yeah.
I'm good juju.
Yeah,
So
I was gonna
it
say,
was,
that's good. Compared to
um,
all the apps you see, I just, I'll get on when I get home and I'll download those stupid apps where it's like, whatever, it's some garbage game. And I'm like,
yeah,
like the ones you're talking about are like important. Okay, I got to get to work type of stuff, and very enjoyable too. So there you
yeah,
go.
yeah. But no, you learned a lot, and I'm really grateful that I took a
Yeah,
bet on myself. I was basically already broke and in my, mid 20s. Like I had a cool job selling private jets, but like it pays enough, but it's not paying me enough to, like, start saving a ton of money and investing a ton of money. And so, I was
right.
just like, hey, like I have so much less to lose now than I would, if I was married, wife and kid.
Yeah,
I was like, now's the best time to take a bet on myself.
yeah,
Right. Like,
yeah,
and I think that that's the thing that I say to a lot of students is like, don't try and get what your parents have in your 20s, right? They
yeah,
didn't get it in their 20s. They got
yeah,
it when they're in their 30s or 40s. In your 20s, take risks.
yeah,
Like, go to zero a couple times. It's fine,
yeah.
right? Like, stability is not meant for your 20s.
I like that advice. I think that's good advice.
So yeah, so I was really grateful that was, that
Yeah.
was the bet that I took on myself, and and then it just kind of got me into this world of building companies.
So building companies leads you to what avenue today? I think as you were talking at the beginning, I was like, okay, we have a lot of listeners that are interested in aviation, but I think pretty much one thing that everybody has in common is they're buying groceries, right?
Yep.
Or as I think that's a new word from what I heard from President Trump. People haven't talked about groceries in a long time.
He's bringing it back.
He's bringing it back.
It's a very popular word. You say groceries enough, you get elected president, or you say groceries enough, you get elected mayor of New York City. Like,
Right. Yeah.
it's the magic word. So watch out, midterm elections. It's going to be the groceries elections.
That might be the zinger right there. But so what are we doing today, Andy? Can you explain?
So one of the things that I learned from my private jet clients is that they had a whole team of people that made sure the decisions that they were making were the right ones. And if they didn't have the information, they could send somebody out to go get information. Right. And so this idea of having a team on your side was something I've always thought a lot about. And I've also thought that the future is here. It's just not evenly distributed. Right. There's a lot of people that have a lot of access at the upper echelons of things. And that has, for a lot of us, not trickled down to us. And so I'm a new dad, and
Oh,
my daughter's 11 months old. And I've been buying
congratulations.
a lot of things that I haven't bought before. And I'm like, is that actually how much this costs? Right? Is it a different price if I go to a different store? Especially groceries. Like, my daughter eats all of the berries that we will feed her, and berries
Yeah.
are now super expensive. And so a question right through my head is like, I have a source of truth for how much things cost for almost everything else that I purchase, right? If I'm buying a plane ticket, not a private jet, but a plane ticket home to see my family in Texas, I go to Kayak or Expedia, and it shows me all of my options before I buy a $500 or $600 flight. But I spend $10,000, $11,000, $12,000 a year on groceries, and I don't compare at all. I just walk into a store and pay whatever price that store tells me they cost. And so I said, what would price comparison look like for groceries? What would it look like if I had my shopping list and I could take my whole shopping list and compare it across every store before I left my house.
My
So I
okay.
can know it's $110 there, it's $130 there, it's $150 there, but they'll throw in, free delivery. Right. I
Yeah.
want to know what my options are, and then I can decide for me what's the right choice for me this week. And that's what we built with my new company, Stretch Groceries. And so the app just launched. You can download it for free in
Uh-huh.
either of the app stores. But we're saving people already about $1,000 a year just
Wow.
by knowing before they leave their house if they turn left or turn right, how much money they could save.
Wow. So, I will say, in my world of being an expert in this is going to the store. But around this area, regional market is Jewel, which is what I think owned by Safeway, or all tied
Yep.
together somewhere, I think at
Yep.
the top. But so I have that. We have Walmart. We have Myers, which is a regional store
Yep.
brand, right? Probably about 3 or 4 months ago, a friend was like, "Why don't you just stop shopping and try the Walmart Plus?" I'm like, "All right." So I paid for that, using that. Your app Stretch comes along. How does that, let's say, do you, like someone like me who may have something like that going on, is that do comparisons as well to say, well, Jeff, it's been a year of Walmart Plus, because they tell you your savings on there, but
Yep.
does that incorporate into Stretch and what you guys are trying to do?
Yeah. Yeah. Eventually, we will allow people to actually let us know which loyalty cards they have, which
Okay.
programs they're already a part of.
Okay.
And I think that the thing that's really interesting to pay attention to is just the speed with which prices change,
Yeah.
right? And the frequency with which prices are changing now is unprecedented, right? I mean, Walmart even has electronic shelf tags in some locations, which is pretty crazy to see. They've got surge pricing on bread, right? Like I'm used to surge pricing on my Uber, but like on my
Yeah.
bread, like I don't
So
know how I feel about that.
that's interesting. I had never thought of it that way. I guess I thought it was just an evolution. And I worked at a grocery store when I was younger, and going through and updating prices, those digital displays. But is that a way? I mean, now that you say it, that they can do that rapidly if they're seeing a fluctuation, or if somebody's buying something quicker, they're like, oh, let's start checking the price up.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
It's
so they're
it's it
okay.
it it went to the Supreme Court
Yeah,
with the way Kroger was doing it, because Kroger was trying to had facial recognition on their shelf tags,
really.
and it turns out, big surprise, that the
Yeah,
shelf tags were racist.
really.
And
Wow.
and 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 so it actually, they had to discontinue the facial. They were trying to say, well, this is our member, so we want to we want to show them the member price. But they were able to change the prices so frequently that
What was it doing that was racist? Was it
when
targeting
they
people and
when
jacking
when
up
they
the price?
when they looked at the prices that people were being quoted, it was definitely skewing towards jacking up prices for people
Really? I
that
never had heard that.
yeah, yeah. So
Wow,
this was 2023, I think 2024.
wow.
But most of the technology that has rolled out in grocery is
Yeah,
really in service of the retailer. There hasn't
yeah,
been a shopper side innovation that
yeah,
has really, done something for the shopper. And I think that the shoppers are starting to realize that, with grocery prices being up 35% since the pandemic, that everything's on the table, right? Like loyalty is closer to dead than it's ever been. People are
yeah,
willing to consider multiple stores. They'll go to multiple stores on a single trip, or for a single shopping trip. And loyalty, while it has some perks, a lot of times it actually is just locking in
yeah,
that mentally. It's like, no, 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 I'm a Walmart Plus member, so I'm just going to shop there. And so you stop comparing. You stopped looking to see if there was a
right.
better choice.
Oh, no,
Um,
absolutely. I do. It's exactly what I'm doing right now, because you're like,
yeah.
"Well, what the heck?" Even with Amazon, you're like, "Oh, they said they have 500 million items. I'll find something on here I
Yeah,
want."
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so if you're, let's just say you're me, and so I can understand this better because I'm
Yeah,
an idiot. So I download your app Stretch. I'm at
yep,
home. Where does that kind of start for, like, is it like a map that does immediate comparisons, or do you
yeah,
have to preload information that, or you do you scan your past receipts so it gets
yep,
an idea of
yeah.
what
Do
you
do do
buy?
do 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 you shop from a grocery list?
So what ends up happening, to your point about Walmart Plus, I don't do a shopping list when I go in the store. I just randomly pick stuff. But when you buy on there, of course, and it's like, Jeff, did you forget peanut butter? Jeff, did you?
Right. Yep.
So
Yep.
it obviously starts building a profile for you. And
Yeah.
lo and behold, it's like Captain Crunch pops right up for me. Like it's
Yep.
like, and so in
It
that
knows.
way,
It
yeah.
knows.
Yeah, but if you're Jeff Miller and I'm just walking in a store, I'm just free forming. I'm just like
Yeah.
this podcast. I'm just going all over the place. But when when
Yeah.
when,
Well,
when
so about 90% of people shop with a grocery list of some,
yeah,
but
okay,
you know, it's a Post-it note, it's a
yeah,
picture of their old receipt, it's a
yeah,
text from their spouse. You
yeah,
know, that's the grocery list. So grab any of those and upload it to Stretch. You know, you take a photo of it, you can upload a screenshot, you can grab a recipe, however you
yeah,
want to build your grocery list.
okay,
Stretch will read it and turn it into a digital list.
okay,
And then when you click get recommendation, or it'll go look at every store that's on the platform close by,
yeah,
and then it'll show you on the map. All right, if you go to Jewel, it's this much. If you go to Safeway, it's this much. If
yeah,
you go to Meyer, it's this much. If you go to Walmart, it's this much.
right,
And you can know before you leave your house what it is. Now, is it possible that Walmart might be the right choice this week? 100%, right? Especially
yeah,
if you've got your Walmart Plus membership, and it's going to give you maybe even more discounts.
hmm,
But like, I usually fly American Airlines because, you know, I'm from Dallas and
yeah,
it's headquartered there, and I've got lifetime status. But I still check kayak.com before I buy my flight, right?
yeah,
Like, I
yeah,
want to make sure that American's not double the price of
right,
Delta or United or JetBlue, right?
yeah,
And so I think that's what we're starting to see is people have a home store. They probably have their default store,
yeah,
but the default store is not always the best choice. And sometimes you're just like, I don't have time to save money today. I just got to run in and run out, and I know the store layout of that store. Got it. But you know, for a certain amount of money or for a certain time of day or day of the week, you might be willing to try something new to save
yeah.
a little bit of extra money. And at least with Stretch, you know what that is.
Is there, because you mentioned, going to kayak and you probably know, I think it's changed now. They finally are on there, but forever, Southwest Airlines was not searchable on
Yep.
any platform besides Southwest.
Yep.
With you're the smart one here, so I don't know exactly how your data pulls, but is there blackouts that you're working on? Do you have to build partnerships to get prices, or
Yeah.
like is the average consumer, to the examples you just gave, like if I have a Sam's Club or a Costco or a Walmart, those
Mhm.
all feed into your platform?
Yeah, so we're only a year old as a
Yeah.
company, but we have 28 retailers online now, and we're adding
Okay.
more all the time. So there are certainly, you know, especially some of the regionals,
Yeah.
you know, that are not yet on there. Meyer we just added last week,
Okay.
so you know, so that's on there, but I don't think we have Jewel yet.
Okay.
And so yeah, but in the app, you know, we believe that feedback is a gift.
Yeah.
And so we put a big give us feedback button right in the middle of the app, and I read every
Yeah.
single submission. And you
Wow.
can also suggest the store, right? You can
Okay.
suggest what store you'd like to see added. And then we prioritize that based on what our shoppers tell us. They're like, hey, this is great. You know, I'm shopping these 7 stores, but you know, I really want to know what this 8th one would be.
Yeah.
And so you know, our team does an amazing job of you know, trying to keep up with that demand as much as they possibly can.
So when you look at comparing prices, you need to have probably at least a presence of a market chain, probably, because
Mhm.
a mom and pop probably doesn't have. I would probably assume mom and pop's going to be more expensive anyways, but like you go camping and you're at the general store and
Yeah,
nowhere, anywhere,
yeah.
that type of situation. Or
Yep.
do you see it evolving even like, you talked about your 11-month-old where I'm at home and it's like, oh, I can buy diapers down at the Walgreens or across at, whatever. Is that,
Yeah.
do you see that?
Yeah.
I don't know. You tell
Yeah,
me.
no, you know, my dream is to be able to upload my shopping list into Stretch, and for Stretch to know my brand preferences, my store preferences, and also to be able to split my list to order these 7 things from Amazon Fresh and go to your local grocery store for these 12. That would be your optimized list for the week, right?
Yeah.
To be able to understand, you know, this is what I want for convenience, and this is what I want for saving prices, and that's what we're working towards, is being able to see all of your options, to mix and match stores, to say, hey, I just need it delivered this week,
Right.
to say, hey, I'm going to do curbside pickup this week, to say, hey, I know I want these things, and then just going to vibe, I'm going to vibe grocery shop once I get to the store, just decide which type of Captain Crunch I get once I get there.
So, so when you run a list through Stretch, how so at the end you talked about saving people like $1,000. Um, does the user go through and give feedback so it builds a profile that you can show a cost savings? Because eventually
Yeah,
the system would have to know whether you secured the recommendation right or
exactly.
would it. So is that kind of the like
Yeah. So
you need a user who really wants to understand their finances a little bit, I would assume, right? Because they gotta be an active participant and at least getting some of this data back, right?
yeah, so the number one job of a grocery list as we know today, right, is to make sure you don't forget anything, right? And so
Absolutely.
that's ultimately how people end up using Stretch and how we end up understanding how they shop better is most grocery lists is just write it down so you don't forget it.
Yeah.
Ours is write it down so you don't forget it, so we can save you money and time. And then when you go to the store, you just check things off your grocery list as you go,
Yeah.
and then we can actually kind of clock that savings for you.
Yeah.
And I also understand your brand preferences, right? Because most people, when they build a shopping list, right, they
Yeah.
they put cereal,
Yeah.
right? They don't put peanut butter Captain Crunch, right?
Right.
Like that cereal means Captain Crunch.
Right.
So does Walmart, right? Walmart knows probably more about you than you know about Walmart.
Oh, I
And
know. Trust me, I know.
and so Stretch gets to know you similarly, so that when you build
Yeah.
your shopping list and you write cereal, we're going to go show Captain Crunch at every grocery store close by.
Yeah. It knows me well because when I'm checking out, it'll pop up and say, "You sure you don't want any Count Chocula?
Yep.
You
Yep.
sure you're making the right decision, Jeff?"
Yep. Yeah.
Um,
Well,
but
and if you think about that, and
yeah,
it's really interesting, to hear you say it, because the CFO for Walmart in their earnings call last month bragged about how they're using AI to increase the amount that shoppers spend at their store.
seems fair. Yeah, that seems
That
fair.
that is what a grocery store should do, right? That
Yeah,
is
right.
the
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is their job, is to get you to
That's their
spend
job.
more.
Yeah,
But as a shopper, I don't want to spend 33% more every time I go to the store because AI tricked me into buying things that I may or
right,
may not need.
right, right,
And that's actually what Walmart, if you're a Walmart shareholder, that's great news. If you're a
right,
shopper, their new AI, their Sparky agent,
right.
its job is to make you spend more at Walmart than you meant to.
Well, it's funny you said that because as, just an end user of all this, I was thinking the other day, I was like, there's something that you lose, like me, there you lose something for me not being in the physical store. And that is, sparkly thing around you, shiny object
Yep,
syndrome,
yep,
like, impulse buying wherever. Oh, I didn't. Yeah, that's right. I do. You know what? I will grab that. But when you're in
yeah,
the app, so you're right. I feel like it's, because it makes it easier, because oh yeah, but yeah, I feel what you're saying because I feel like in the app you're starting to get like, oh yeah, yep, I get that too. um,
right, yeah,
but
yep.
when you were talking about the relationships that you have with the grocery stores, do you envision so like I'm a member, I said the Walmart thing, but I also have a Jewel. I put in my phone number so they can track what I'm doing. But when you build your partnership with a grocery store like that, is that part of the idea too, where it could import that data into Stretch that it would allow
Yeah,
it probably would be a lot easier for everybody, right? If you were like, oh yeah, Jeff went and bought Jiffy peanut butter, but he skipped on the Peter Pan or whatever, right? Like,
yeah, yep.
is there part of that? Do you see that, or am I all way off the mark here?
No, no, no. I feel like you've been reading my business plan.
Okay, all right.
No, it's the identity that we'll be able to build,
Yeah.
within Stretch. But what we think is really powerful is you'll be able to take that with you to every store,
Okay.
right? And not just here's my Walmart identity and here's my Jewel
Right.
identity and here's my
Right.
Sam's Club identity, right?
Right.
It's understanding your brain preferences. It's understanding your family goals, right? Like, are we trying to
Yeah.
save extra money this year for a bigger vacation? All of those types of things are things that we can envision, being able to feed into Stretch.
Yeah.
Hey, are we trying to shop healthier this year? Take
Right.
my normal shopping list and make it a little bit healthier, right? All of
Yeah.
these things are things that we can imagine, because when you think about the kitchen, it's the heart of the home, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of you know a lot about somebody if you know what type of
Yeah.
groceries they buy.
Well, and I think too on the other side, I think one of the nice things maybe potentially, I don't know, I mean, this is probably a kumbaya thought, but you talk about so much food waste that, if people are looking for a particular item and there's more celery here, you see these stories of just stuff getting thrown out by the
Yeah.
tons at these stores.
Yeah.
And if you had a better app where people knew, because I go to places and stuff sold out, but maybe there's a supply right down the road that's going rotten or
100%.
something,
Yep.
so where do you see your app in say 5 years? Where are we going to see Andy at? Is he going to be inside my Walmart Plus app digging around?
I think that there's three different types of waste that happen right now
Yeah,
within grocery. There's shoppers overpaying, which is the thing that we're starting with, right?
yeah,
Like just because of lack of transparency, most shoppers are overpaying, right?
yeah.
We're all suckers somehow right now,
That
right?
is true. Oh yeah,
It's weird to me that we've all just kind of been okay with it.
right.
uh, but I think that, so that's the first thing that I think we can change. Second thing I think we can change, and I love that you brought it up, is food waste, right?
Yeah,
When you think about aggregating demand, all of the shoppers in a neighborhood that
yeah,
have celery on their shopping list. Hey, this store knows that they've got 3 days to move the celery before a new shipment comes in. Which shoppers have celery on your grocery list, right?
yeah.
What
Right,
what other things on your grocery list that a store might be willing to give you a discount for, to make sure that they don't just throw it away? Like, they'll sell it at half price so they get at least get their base cost right out of it.
right.
So I think food waste is another one that we think a ton about. And then and with food waste, like the fact that in America there are people with food insecurity, the richest country
Yeah,
in the world, that, like, it's bonkers to me, right?
right.
Like, there's 100 billion a year in food waste from grocery stores,
Yeah,
right? That pretty much solves hunger.
yeah.
And
No,
if we
yeah,
just fix that. So the Stretch Foundation one day, maybe we'll be able to build the charitable side of this. But then also, just aligning interests with the retailers and with the CPG brands.
yeah,
They're spending so much money just spraying and praying advertising, hoping that it hits somebody that someday buys their thing, but they can't really trace it, right? They can't really
yeah.
understand this ad converted this person to buy this product at this store, right? They know
Right,
that their sales went up last month, but they don't know why, right?
right.
And so I think being able to understand, just both sides of the fog that exists, right?
Yeah,
Shoppers can't see prices, brands and stores can't see shoppers the way that everybody used to when there was a little bit more, a little bit less choice. I
yeah,
think that that's where I see Stretch really playing in the middle and creating
yeah.
an entirely new relationship between the shopper and the industry.
We had on the podcast a group called Affordable Skies, and their kind of holistic mission is looking out for the consumer in aviation. Don't want to say it necessarily advocating for ultra low cost carriers, but keeping access within that. But you saw what happened with Spirit. United has pitched by an American. I understand that world pretty well. I understand what mergers and stuff potentially mean to the competitive market. How do you feel in this world, in this space of supermarket chains? I see the stories where they talk about the mom and pops, which one thing higher prices usually, but what I've understood, I've worked at a couple different grocery stores when I was younger, and just being in this world, that the profit margins are very narrow at a grocery store, 3%. I don't know. You're the expert on that type of stuff, but um, do you see like an app like this serving in a world where options are getting more consolidated? Are you concerned? I know there was a merger here in Illinois a few years ago that they stepped in and stopped between two grocery groups. How's the market looking? Is your app a way to try to not circumvent, but at least be aware that that type of consolidation is increasing prices? Or like you mentioned, the AI world, like how's your general pulse on this side of the things?
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm seeing the most is that shoppers are realizing that they truly do have choice,
Yeah,
that they're not just locked in to the loyalty card that they have,
yeah,
that the $5 that you get back for every $500 you spend or whatever it is isn't really worth it
okay,
when you really compare like what being locked into just picking one store does.
right,
And, again, like I said, it might be the right choice 60% of the time, 70% of the time, but the other 30% of the time, you could save $20 by picking a different store, right? All of a sudden, that
Right.
$5, cash back doesn't feel so awesome, because you could have just kept $20 in your pocket
Right.
instead of, if you had compared before before you shopped. So I think that shoppers understand that they actually have more choice, that they have a new tool with our app Stretch
Yeah.
that gives them a little bit more power. But I think that people are making decisions outside of the stores now, right? They're using AI to research things. They're using
Right.
recipe apps to build grocery lists. They're using Stretch to compare prices.
Yeah.
They're making decisions outside of the view of the brands and the retailers for the first time ever.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the way that the industry works is going to have to be reconsidered. And I'm really excited to be in the middle of that conversation.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I see it evolving even for me as a consumer, the Walmart Plus is new this year, but I'll say I really enjoy not going to the store. I do the delivery to the house. I love just having it out there, and it's hit and miss on whether I get extra stuff, which they probably have to build that into the price, uh, or also whether I don't get the stuff that I ordered or I get something different. But when you look at, like them building out type apps and loyalties, like Jewel, I hate Jewel's app. It is horrible. You have to have the Wi-Fi working in the store because the cell phone signal sucks. And you have to clip a coupon.
They do that on purpose, right?
Do they? Okay, no, I would. That's why I'm asking you because I'd love
So
to
so
know
so so
why.
so they can track you more in the store. If you're
Yeah.
on their Wi-Fi,
Okay, they
they
can
know
move
more.
okay, and then what's the deal with the so, like, like I say, like Walmart. I think one of the things like Walmart or Aldi, at least in my mind as a consumer, I prefer because to the points you made, I often feel like any loyalty program is just an attempt to get you to spend more money. That's just the reality of it. But I was like, okay, you look at a large group like a Walmart, they're throwing in, Paramount or Peacock, and they're throwing in a discount at Burger King, and they're large enough to try to, hey, look at all this other stuff you get, 10 cents off at mobile gas.
Yeah.
Um, but do you I guess when you look at the total of, our like where we're moving as far as apps and loyalty and connecting people in, do you think like a Walmart eventually is going to, are you going to see these, mid-sized, can they compete in that space when it comes to trying to drag someone into their app? Especially we're talking about the functionality of mine is as, it makes sense what you're saying. I assumed it probably was tracking me around the store, but I don't understand the coupon versus just a lower rate. And I would love to hear your thoughts on stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, the opacity of how much it would cost to buy my groceries this week is
Yeah.
insane, right? Like why do I need a math degree
Yeah.
to buy groceries?
Right.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
do I need this coupon? Do I need this loyalty? Do I need a loyalty and a coupon? Does the coupon work if I have a loyalty card also? Right? Like,
Yeah.
and
Right.
and you mentioned the grocers, margins, right? Always a headline: groceries margins are 1 to 3%. Oh,
Yeah.
poor grocery stores, way. The reason that they're locking you in on all these different places is because they're selling your data at 70 or 80% margin.
Wow. Wow.
And so
And that,
it's called a retail media network.
okay.
And so the stores realized that they have all this proprietary first party data about
Yeah.
Jeff Miller,
Yeah.
and brands that want Jeff Miller to buy their stuff want your data from Walmart so that they can advertise to you on Instagram or on
Right.
LinkedIn or on Twitter or on Paramount Plus. And so that ad network is making Walmart over $60 per shopper per year
Wow.
on top of
Yeah.
all of the other things that they do. So they have that margin to be able to give you a little bit extra that feels good.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, I got 10 cents off,
Right.
my gas. They just made another $60 off of you. Right.
Right. Right.
And, and so, and Amazon makes $155 per
Wow.
shopper
Wow.
on top of everything else that you buy on Amazon, right? They're just
Yeah.
selling your data. So all of the lock-in for retail media networks is to be able to sell the data, but
Yeah.
that's all breaking right now because they don't, the brand, like I was talking with an executive at Liquid Death, right?
Yeah.
Love Liquid Death,
Yeah.
but I buy Liquid Death at like three or four different places,
Yeah.
right? It's kind of like I'm not loyal to buying my Liquid Death from
Yeah.
Target,
Right.
right? So I see a Liquid Death ad, and I'm like, oh yeah, next time next time I'm there, I'm going to grab some. Well, I could grab some at Whole Foods. I could grab some at Target. I could grab some at Dollar General. I could grab some at Walmart. The executive at Liquid Death doesn't know which of the ad networks to attribute my purchase to. And so that's where it started to get interesting, on the business side of things, right? That huge margin, it's going to be $100 billion, the retail media network in 2028, right? It's the
Wow.
fastest growing ad network ever.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of the lock in and the loyalty is actually
Yeah.
fueling and funding.
How do you I mean, obviously you build apps, that's part of that world, especially as I guess I kind of always looked at it as a consumer. Especially if I'm not paying for the app, there's got to be revenue produced somehow.
Yep.
So I understand that. But I guess like in your case, is your vision for Stretch that you wouldn't sell data that people give you on their shopping habits? Or do you, again, because I don't, in my own head, I'm not even necessarily like, I kind of get how that can make something more user, or I should say affordable for the end user, right?
Yep.
If they're not if I'm not directly paying for the app, I kind of get like, oh, it's like network TV. I'm not paying for it, so I got to get something. They got to get something out of this.
Yeah. 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 I mean, the old saying is if you're not paying for the product,
Right.
you are the product.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
And so so with Stretch, we have a vision around a handful of different ways that we make money. One, if we pass a shopping list to a store, they'll pay us a little bit of a commission, right?
Yeah.
That's not going to influence which store we tell you to go to,
Right.
but we're just going to let you know, hey, this is a store that we're partnering with, and if you go there, we make a little bit of money that allows us to keep the
Right.
app free. Two is on the business intelligence side of things, being able to understand, how many people want to buy things. So like large, geographic areas, like what's the demand for paper towels in the greater Chicago area?
Right.
Yeah, Bounty probably wants to know that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But then the final one is being able to actually understand, the purchasing behavior and things along those lines. So there is the data piece, but we're toying with the idea of building it more like a co-op. So it's a data co-op where you can opt in to be a part of the co-op, and then you get part of the revenue at the end of the year. So if
Oh,
we one day, get to making $50, on, for every shopper that is on our platform, how much can we give back to the shoppers? Because it's their data, right? Like
right.
we want them to be able to participate. And I think that's the other thing that I think that a lot of shoppers, need to understand is that, your data is very valuable, and you should get a lot more for it than just, $5 back off of a $500 purchase.
No, that makes sense. I know you have a hard stop at 9, Andy. So I guess I would just ask, we've gone through this. Thank you for connecting some of this to aviation. And like I said, I'm fascinated too, because who doesn't want to save money? And this is something that touches every single person. Anything I didn't ask you, you want the listeners to know about Stretch, about yourself, or just buying groceries?
Yeah, no, I think that leaning into the fact that shoppers have more power than they ever did,
Yeah.
and they should, there's more choices than there ever has been.
Yeah.
So do yourself a favor, download Stretch, search Stretch groceries in either of the app stores, and I would love the feedback. Right, we're growing quickly, and we're getting a lot of great feedback, but there's also ways that we can improve, and I think that that's the like I mentioned, I've always been a very curious person, and I'm really curious what you and your listeners think about Stretch when you get the chance to use it for the first time.
I love that, Andy. Well, thank you so much. And congratulations on being a fairly new father. That's
Thank you.
phenomenal. All
Yeah,
right,
thanks
Andy.
so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. You know what I love about this podcast is I love learning more about aviation, but I love learning more about anything else. Who got to know all that stuff about watching your face when you're buying something? Yeah, it's interesting with those tags. I just assumed there was a way, just to make money further or something. Selling, I guess, pops into it, but I just figured it was a way to change things quickly. But hey, what did I know? I actually just found my old Meyer pricing gun. I don't think they price anything anymore. My days grocery shopping at Myers and working at Myers. Actually, it was funny. The engine in my car blew up, and I got a job working third shift stocking at Myers to save up $600 to put a new engine in my sweet Pontiac Grand Prix. So anyways, I learned a ton there. Bunch of stuff. I have this coming. I recorded this before the next episode comes out, so we've already talked all about the 100 year. But I'm looking forward to doing another narrative. I've gotten a lot of great comments on the last one, so thank you everybody for that. And maybe we'll put some of those on the next time we do one of those episodes. But anyways, until next time. Oh, I should say, as always, if you have someone interested in the podcast, dapodcast85 at gmail.com. That's where you can find us. You can get on the website now and purchase a challenge coin. Those are on there for sale for $20. Stickers are $5. Feel free to head over to www.destinationaviation.org. And until next time, my friends, I'll see you down the runway.